This is the Volkswagen Grand California. Now normally I don't really watch a lot of reviews of cars I'm about to review, but I had a look at a few for this one and almost all of them are wrong or missed the point. But we're going to go through all the detail of what makes this a camper van versus just a van in a few minutes. So what I did see in a couple of other reviews was that the handbrake just falls down. And it does for a reason. Anyone who's ever rotated one of these captain's chairs in the standard California will know the struggle that you have with the handbrake being there that makes this impossible. Whereas in this, the handbrake is already down. So you just flip the switch and turn the seat. Very straightforward. That one's the very same. They're very easy to rotate. Although I do find it funny, there's a warning signal here that says you should only drive the car while the seat's facing that way. Ministry of the bleeding obvious there, Volkswagen. So this is the rear passenger seat, this bit here. Now I would call these occasional seats really because it's quite narrow. This is quite a narrow little seat. Getting two adults onto this is going to be a bit of a problem. And in the evening, when you rotate all the seats around, you're going to have to put the kids this side because an adult really doesn't fit on this side. Now, the big problem is this wall behind me is actually the toilet. And it comes forward so far that this back of the seat here is bolt upright, absolutely bolt upright. And I'm in a van, I'm supposed to be driving for a long distance. It's a long range unit. That's a bit of an issue there, Volkswagen. Really, you could have knocked 100 mils off the width of that door, or you could have moved this forward by 100 mils. It's not terribly comfortable. But I do like the lights that are here where you touch them and hold it down and it dims the light down. That's very nice. And also, very important as well, something that Renault totally missed out with the other camper vans that I've tested, is that there is actually lights that can be left on back here while driving. These little LED strips stay on. The main headlight over the roof of the van, that doesn't stay on, that goes off. But these lights, they all stay on while driving. So the rear passengers can have a read while they're driving along the road. Very important. Just while the table's out, we're having a look at something else here. There's a little bin down the bottom, which is actually pretty good. But these windows are plastic, so just remember that one, that these can be attacked and pulled apart. So this is like a proper normal camper van, have these plastic windows. So you open up these little three hooks here, you push out and you've got a window that opens wide. But what I do like is it has a privacy shade built in, which allows you to open it, and it's a fly screen, so that keeps the flies out. That's also on the main door. I'll show you that in a second. But on the bottom of that, it has another full blackout screen on the bottom as well, which blacks out all of the light coming in from the outside along with that window. I do love that that's all built in. It's very nice. It's a really good feature to have in a van, because when you're sitting here and you want to open a window on a hot day and there's flies outside, like in Ireland we get a lot of river flies, this is brilliant. So you can still open the windows and have that out, and you can close all this when you're going off shopping to get your stuff for the weekend. You can close all this up and people can't see into the back. Pretty cool. So all the storage across here really is for small items. That's all you're going to fit in it. I mean, we brought along a little pan here, which is even a tiny camping pan. You wouldn't get it into the cupboard. It doesn't fit. And that's only a little small pan. You know, there's just nowhere. You need to buy a special set of cookware to use this camper van. Now, also the big compromise, well, it's a good thing that you have the toilet in the middle of the van, so people up there can use the toilet, people down here can use the toilet separately. But the problem is, if anyone's sitting here having a nice time, you can't actually open the door on your legs. It's right there. Anyway, like I said, these vans are always a compromise. They always are. But I do like the kind of cozy feel that's back here in the bed. I don't fit across it, but that's okay. So there's a control panel here on the wall that tells me all about what's happening inside the vehicle. So I get battery information, tells me I have 72% battery. We just drove here, so it charges while you drive. Also, this is like a touchpad. It's not very responsive though. It also tells me about fresh water and grey water inside. Now I put 44% of the tank, which is 140 litres, into the fresh water. Now, unfortunately, the fuel tank is not as big as the fresh water tank. So here at the sink, pump starts up and out the water comes. Great stuff, that's deadly. Unfortunately, because they didn't put in a diesel heater, which is an optional extra in this, I can't heat the water. You have to heat it from two propane tanks in the back. That's your only alternative. So wild camping in this is really out. Diesel heaters are always where it's at, and it comes standard in an ordinary California. Now there is a big problem with this one. I think it's a problem with just this one in the way it's been set up. So the water runs here quite well, but as soon as you start actually running water from your 140 litre water tank, It actually just pours out the bottom of the vehicle. There's a problem, there's a leak underneath here somewhere, and I cannot find where it is. There is a control box down the bottom here that gives me a lot of information about what's happening there, and you can actually dump the grey water from that one as well and dump the fresh water from there. I've tried closing it, I've tried opening it, I've tried doing everything to do it, but no, the water is now puddling out through the bottom of the van. Also in here, this one, big difference, is it has a toilet. Basically, it goes into a tank, a cartridge that you take out and use at your leisure. But the problem is the box that contains a toilet, this bit here, is so big, it takes over a large portion of the kitchen, and it takes over a huge portion of the driving area for the kids in the back, or whoever it is in the back that you've got going on. This does not recline, so it's vertical. So when you sit on it, it's the most uncomfortable thing I've ever sat on in my life. And then we move on to the other part, which is the table. The table can be left here for all driving if you want to, some driving if you want to. You can take it away at any given time just by pulling it out of the wall. It just clips into something. The problem is, if you don't want it there, there's nowhere actually to put it. There's no useful space in the van for it to live. That's a problem. Other problems. There's an upstairs bed here that you pull out, you press a button, and you pull that, and it drops down to being a bed, and then a little bit comes out here as well. Once it's in position, you can't do anything inside here. You just have to bend down to get underneath it. It comes with a ladder. Once you put the ladder on, I'll show you the ladder. No, the ladder's covered and stuff, is it? It comes with this ladder from the back, of which you unfold and you hook on to the handle. There's your ladder. Now you can't go up the front of the van without squeezing past the ladder. You can, it will take an adult up here for sure, maybe. It's called a grandkids bed, weirdly, by Volkswagen. But then the ladder folds up again. So realistically, as much of a compromise as the California is, the standard California, you have to compromise your whole life to use that as a camper van. The benefit of the California is it can go anywhere and you can park it at any time. You can basically use it every day. The downside of this one is you can't use it every day. It's gigantic on the road, which means you can hit trees and stuff as you're driving along the road. And you've also got some very expensive solar panels on the front of this van, so when you're driving on the road, that's the first thing that's going to hit the trees. I really do think that the Grand California is a massive compromise. It is supposed to be a full-size camper van, and yet it's not really full size. It's the personality in here of a dentist's office. Is pure white that goes all around the edge. It's not very homely, it's not very cozy. It's only really cozy in certain situations, and only when the two of you are in it at any one time. These little back panels and things open up. I do also like these skylights on the roof. There's one in the front and one in the back, and they come a little wheel that you turn to open them. They flip up and flip down. I get the impression that they're going to break at some point in the future, but maybe not. They also have the same fly screen effect or privacy screen effect, which gives a nice kind of cozy feel to the interior when they're closed, but it's lovely when they're open. They offer a good bit of daylight in here. Let's look in the back of the van, because here is where you're going to have to basically store everything that you need for your camping trip. It's a crafter, so it's a double height doors. That's perfect. Plenty of space, plenty of room to get at everything in here. You actually get your two seats, the same as you do in the California. You get your two seats in the back doors here, both sides. That's my camper cable is in here. This is the bed at the back, and under here we have a little kind of shower unit you use to wash your feet off with, but there's no water in the van anymore because it's decided to dump it all over the ground. So this being a crafter, it's got plenty of space in it for you to do all kinds of things, but it being a Grand California, you don't have as much space as you think. So when you want to get at something under the bed, this lifts up. Obviously, you have to move everything off it first, and it hooks on, and you strap it on so it can't fall back down to these little straps here, like that. So that holds up out of the way while you're operating here in the back. Now, in the back, literally you only have this storage, right? You've got a small cupboard here that you can probably put your boots and stuff in, maybe some pots and pans. On this side is the propane cylinders, and then in front of that is the water tank that just pours water all over the ground. And in front of that is another little cupboard here that you're not going to get much into. Storage wise, there isn't a ton of it. There's enough, but not enough for long-term wild camping. And why do I keep going on about wild camping? Because you get the other California to go to campsites or wild camp all you want. Wild camping means to pull up on the side of the road here and just set up and make a cup of tea. This is the perfect one, or should be the perfect one, for wild camping. And why it isn't is because it's just such a compromise. Really, all you're doing is bringing a mobile toilet. That's what's there. You have a toilet with you, so that's brilliant. So that means that I'm able to go to the very top of a mountain somewhere, park, and use the toilet and have a shower, should I want to. But you can't, you see, because it's so compromised on space. It's so difficult. And this is €76,000. This isn't a cheap van. Anyway, this little hooky up thing is pretty good. Goes back down to being a bed in a second. I love the memory foam mattress. I like the kind of springs underneath made of plastic. And this here puts out your awning around the outside as well. There's some cool features. Just so many compromises for this vehicle. Such a lot of them. So a quick word on driving the Grand California. It's based on a Volkswagen Crafter with an extended roof on the top of it basically. But in here it's very familiar. It's a Volkswagen interior, so it's the full Crafter experience. It is a bit industrial Volkswagen up the front here. I mean, it doesn't feel like a passenger vehicle, but it's supremely comfortable. Armrests on both sides of my captain's chair that revolves as well. Fuel economy, well, that's an issue, okay? That's an issue. I haven't really seen below 10 litres per 100 kilometres, but generally speaking, this is the kind of van you drive to a place, you park, and you don't drive it again. They're all fairly heavy on fuel, and this one is no exception. But it's just part of the game, I suppose. You have to play it to buy a camper van of this size. It has an 8-speed DSG box and has cruise control, not active cruise control, but it does have active lane keeping, which is kind of annoying because it's always ping-ponging between the white lines. Also, it has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto built in. Both work perfectly, although I do find the screen is a little bit laggy when it's cold, so bear that in mind. The heater seems to struggle quite a bit to try and heat up the cabin just because it's so large and all the heat is coming out of these little vents in the front. So the passengers in the back can feel a bit cold on the first part of the journey. Again, not entirely a massively big deal, but not a deal breaker, we'll say. So to sum this up, if you want to buy a camper van that's just finished out of the factory, so you just buy it and it's done and it's finished and you don't need to worry about anything else, then this is probably the one for you, because there's so little to do to it. Just buy it and drive it, and it'll be reliable, and it's got a normal engine in it as well, so there's no need to worry about anything. Spec a diesel heater and make sure the water system is working properly. But other than that, it's finished. But really, 76 grand on a brand new camper van, it's a big ask, and there's so many little compromises to make in this van that doesn't make a lot of sense, particularly as a family of 4. If you're a couple, retired couple, new couple going into camping first, this is probably a brilliant idea for you, because you can bring the kids occasionally, you can bring the grandkids occasionally. That works pretty well in this, but other than that, really isn't that great a camper van. They've done better. Definitely the California, the standard California, just trumps everybody out there for everything it's able to do. It's just such a good vehicle out there. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully by now you've hit the subscribe button, because you've learned all you need to know about the Volkswagen Grand California. You can join me every Sunday for the Sunday service right here on YouTube. You can also contact me by emailing bobflav@thenextgear.com, or finding me on all the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, something else and something else. Whichever one you want to get me on, you will find me there. Just type @BobFlavin. I'm there somewhere. Thank you again for watching, and until the next time, I will see you on the far side.